So I thought I'd make a video of my painting process and share it with everyone, just start to finish, all the way from cropping the reference photo to varnishing the final painting. And I'm going to use this acrylic landscape as an example. Okay, so I've got the reference image loaded up in Krita, and the first thing I want to do is crop the image so the aspect ratio matches that of the canvas. So I've got a 10 by 16 canvas, gives a 0.625 aspect ratio. Go to the crop tool, put that ratio in there, lock it, and now I can mess around with the composition a little bit. This bottom part is pretty boring. I can crop that out. The center part right around here is what I'm interested in, and that diagonal tree I think kind of adds a little bit to it. So I'm gonna mess around with the composition a little, and this upper left is just kind of busy, so I'll crop that out. And that central tree is kind of a problem. It is just a reference photo. You can mess around with the painting. Like in the painting, I'll have that center tree a little bit leaning over, maybe darken up that lower right corner. So go ahead and save it and jump over to our palette. I've got pretty standard colors. The only ones that might be a little unusual are Diox Purple and Green Gold. The Diox, I just use it to cool down colors every now and then. And the green gold gives really nice warm foliage. Alright, so onto the painting. Just starting in on a gray neutral canvas. And instead of drawing in all the scenery, I'm actually just going right in there with the acrylic paint since it dries so quickly. And blocking out the scene, figuring out where I want everything to be. And I'm using just big brushes and not even worrying about the color too much. I'm just sketching in, what I want this to look like. And I'll put in a little bit of tones. Like you can see, I'm going a little darker in the lower right, darker in the upper left, and figuring out where I want those light and dark areas to be. So this is how it looks all blocked in. This is probably just about 20 minutes of painting. So already I've got things mostly where I want to be. You'll notice I moved that central tree and tilted it a little bit more to the right to make it more dynamic. And now what I'm doing is I'm working back to front and painting the sky behind the scene. And I'm trying to simplify that tree canopy a little bit there. And you'll see throughout the painting, I keep going back to that, trying to figure out how to simplify the detail there, but at the same time keep the idea that there's, space in between those leaves. And you can see I've got the reference photo on a screen just to the left, and I find that works out really well. That's actually a TV. It's nice and big, makes it easy to see. And so now I'm going in, adding some little branches here and there, and just kind of gives the hint of a little bit more detail in there. And then on top of that, I'll paint more leaves, and it kind of creates a nice layered look. And here I am, I'm really pushing that tree there really dark, because I want the high contrast of that area to be the focal point of the painting. And adding a little warm glow from the sun there. So that high contrast and high detail will hopefully draw the eye to that area. And in the upper left, I want a little bit more loose and bigger brush strokes. Kind of the difficulty is trying to figure out how to simplify some of the shapes of all the trees. I keep going back into that tree canopy and fiddling around with it a little bit, and I'm pretty happy with the way it's coming out there. But you'll see I just went back in with a little bit more a little warm brown to pick up the color from down below there. And now I'm going in with the cad yellow. Just really bring out bring out the warmth and the brightness of the sun there. Just putting in lots of little detail there. It's my favorite part of this photo, so I'd really like this to look nice. And you see, I came back the next day and realized that that yellow was just kind of blending in with the green behind it. The background was just too similar. And so I went in there and with a little bit of ultramarine blue and dioxazine purple, I really cooled down the background, and that really makes those bright yellow leaves jump out. It is always painful though when you have to jump back and be like, I gotta fix that background, and then you end up having to repaint some of the foreground on top of it. So at this point, I'm pretty happy with the way I've got that main focal point, and I'm starting to work on this hillside here. And putting in little details, little branches. And I want to be careful that on the left-hand side that reads as a hillside and not like a giant bush or something. And I think what will help with that is just making lots of little blades of grass and things. So here I am putting in some little bits of grass. And that kind of starts to make it feel more like that's a hill. And here I am going into this other pool of light down here. And what I want to do is just start with a nice warm orangish base. So then when I put the cad yellow on top of that, even the shadows will still have a feeling of warmth from the sun. Just gonna go in there, put in some grass, little rocks and pebbles and things in there to give it a little bit of texture. And it's funny, you'll see me, I kind of slow down at this stage of the painting. Often I'll just step back for a few minutes and just look at it, because sometimes, you step back to the other side of the room, and sometimes the problems with it are more apparent. Letting a little bit of that warm light spill onto the trail. And now I just need to do the lower right-hand side of the painting. And I'm going to be making a lot of little horizontal lines, making those roots a little bit more visible. And that's going to help that those horizontal lines will make that trail read as more of a solid object. It's without those horizontal lines, it's hard to even figure out what that is exactly. So I darkened the lower right-hand corner quite a bit more than the reference photo. Just for compositional reasons. You don't have to follow the photo exactly, it's just reference. You can kind of just do whatever you want. And just putting in some last little details there, getting a little bit of that foliage in there, but again, that's not the focus, so I'm trying to keep it pretty loose. And just about done. Okay. And there we go. And I am quite happy with that. But I'm actually not done with the painting yet. I still need to varnish it, because although acrylic is a quite durable medium, it's still just a good idea to put a coat of varnish on just to keep it nice and protected. And so what I'm going to do is I wait 2 weeks. That way the paint is fully dry. And because this is an acrylic painting, what I'll do is I'll add an isolation coat, which is basically just a transparent medium layer. And so that'll just isolate the pigment layers from the MSA varnish on top. So what I'm going to use here is a golden isolation medium. All it is just a gel medium that's been pre-mixed to be diluted with a little bit of water. You can do this on your own, with just regular gel medium, but in this case I like to buy it pre-mixed just for ease of use. And what you want to do is just kind of goop that onto the surface and then spread it out, evenly distributing it all over the painting. And then what I do is I just lightly brush off the excess. And once you're done, you're gonna get slight streaks most likely, and don't even worry about that. Once it dries, it dries nice and flat. And the next part is you need to put the varnish on. So I'm gonna wait maybe a day or two for that isolation coat to fully dry, just to be sure. And then I'm gonna do my MSA varnish coat. And to do this, what you first need to do is pre-dilute the varnish with a solvent. And in this case, I'm using a golden MSA varnish and the golden solvent that goes with it. What you need to do is just get a jar, put some little tick marks on it, fill it. It's a 3-to-1 ratio, so you fill it 3 of varnish to 1 of the solvent, and then mix it up with the palette knife, let it settle a little bit, and there you go. Oh, and by the way, this stuff is smells so bad, it's gonna stink up your whole workspace for at least a day. And while I'm doing this, I'm wearing a full respirator, not like just the N95 mask, but like a full respirator that you'd wear for airbrushing or something. So once you get it all mixed up, it's similar to the isolation coat. You just kind of goop it onto the surface and spread it evenly. And then I go over it and just wipe off the excess with a very gentle brush stroke. And oh, you'll notice I'm not wearing gloves. You should really wear gloves when you're working with this. I just couldn't find any because of the pandemic and whatnot. And so, yeah, just lightly brush it off. So you're probably going to get a bunch of air bubbles. Similar to the streaks, don't even worry about it. Once it dries out, those air bubbles will be gone. And it takes a while for it to dry, so what I do is I put it in the garage for a week or so, and that gives it time to air out. And there you have it. It's all dry and ready to be placed on the floor, leaning against a wall, where you will imagine someday possibly hanging it up.